Hi everybody, this is Hunt of TheHande and welcome back to me ranking all the adventure games that I have ever played. And so we're picking this up on a second day because the first day, I mean, we got through over halfway. In the previous part one, I ranked 41 adventure games, and we have 34 left. And I was getting a little tired and my voice was starting to kind of give out as well. So I decided that, okay, I guess we will be doing this in two videos. So here are the games that I have already ranked. And if you didn't see part one for some reason, you know, we went through all the LucasArts games that I have played, all the Sierra games, Revolution Software games that I have played. And this time we will be going through games made by other adventure game companies. Well, first we're going to go through the one-offs and games that may be part of a series but where I haven't played any other entries in the series, so I decided that it would be better to just have them as their own in the solo category. And just to remind everybody of the rank stats, like there's of course the ones at the bottom are bad games, but the ones that in the question mark rank are games that I have played but which I have not played enough, where I would have like an informed opinion of these particular games. And basically, the games in the top three ranks here are games that have either been on my top 10 adventure games list or could be potential candidates for going on the top 10 adventure games list, because that was partly what kind of inspired me to do this. Was the problems. I explained this at the start of part one, but yeah, how I've been thinking about redoing my top 10 adventure games list and how I always kind of inevitably end up not wanting to do it. Okay, this time around, I don't have as strong of a... I don't really have any real need to do this in any specific order, so we're just going to go alphabetically this time, and we're going to start with this game. This, of course, is Alex Kidd in High Tech World, and yeah, you guys already knew that this, this one, it was on my... it was on the most recent, it was in the bottom 10 adventure games list. Yeah, there's no two ways about it. Now, this wasn't the less bad half of the list, if you will. I'm a bit on the fence here, whether to put it in the flat out bad or just the tedious category. You know what, I think it deserves to go here in the tedious category, because the main thing about Alex Kidd in High Tech World is that it's not that it's just badly designed. It is because, you don't get a point-and-click interface or anything like that. And that makes exploring the game world already very tiresome. The thing is, once you, like I said in the bottom 10, once you know where all the death traps are, and there are a lot of death traps in the game, then you can make your way through the game without much difficulty. Now, some people might be wondering, does this game really qualify being on this tier list? Because at the start of the previous part, I made it clear that I was excluding games that, while technically could have classified as adventure games, featured like gameplay elements that were more prominent. And Alex Kidd kind of has, tips its toe also into the platformer pool. Like, there are platforming segments, but this game is like mostly, like, I would say 60 to 70% adventure game still. Like, yes, a big chunk of it is a non-adventure game thing, but it's about as much as like Full Throttle is like a biker beat 'em up game. Which is, it's a negligible part. It's a noticeable, but it's a negligible part. All right, then Alien Incident. Not only do I have a review video of this, I actually have a full Let's Play of this game in English with Retro Kaiser, and then I streamed the Finnish version, and that stream has been edited for YouTube, so you can go see it. So this is the very first adventure game I played. The funny part about this is, like, so this was my gateway drug to point-and-click adventure games. We got this on our first computer ever. It was a Windows 95 machine, but we had to play this in MS-DOS. It wouldn't run on Windows 95, even though I think the box claimed you could. But you can't. You totally could not. and it was by a Finnish company called Housemark. Game Tech was just the publisher. They're not the ones who actually made the game. And let me put it this way: this game is very derivative, and it's actually super easy. That's why I was able to beat it back in the day without any walkthroughs or anything. But it has great production value, great spooky atmosphere, great soundtrack. It does have some fun characters and fun jokes, and the puzzles are quite interesting, but not super easy. I mean, it's not super hard or anything. Like this game, this is not the sort of game. I think the most cryptic part is going down into the catacombs, and even that, if you fumble around long enough, you'll probably find your way out, pretty easily. So this one is a hard one because I love this game, and there are a lot of people. But this was not a huge. This was not a huge game when it came out, because it came out in 1996 and it's an MS-DOS, point and click adventure game. So it had, it was people, people who remember this game remember it very fondly. The localization is a little hit or miss. Like the game, what I actually concluded in my recent when I played through the Finnish version of the game, I actually concluded with the fact that even though the company that made this was Finnish, I think they actually did make the game originally in English and then translated it into Finnish later, because there's so many in-game elements that are only in English, even in the Finnish language version, that I have to assume that's the case. I low-key would kind of want to say that this goes into solid territory, because it's an adventure game you can definitely beat, without much difficulty. Unfortunately, it's not a game that you can really get easily, because there's been a GOG wish list for it forever, but nobody has ever gotten around to actually putting it on GOG or anything. And yeah, I think honestly putting it in the flawed but good category is the best choice, because the flaws in it are very minor. Like I said, this game is really similar to Loom, in my opinion, in that it's really easy to get into, and there's nothing super cryptic about it. But I don't think I can, with good conscience, call it, a fully solid game. Even though I do like it a lot, I have a lot of nostalgia involved with it. And I went through this whole long period from when we got the '98 machine. I don't remember if but I had to assume there was a full over a decade long period when I didn't get to play this until I learned how to work DOSBox, and then I managed, because I had the I have the physical game here actually. No, that's Croc. Here it is. I have the physical game and the physical manual here. So oh yeah. All right, this next one is interesting. We're now getting into Telltale territory. Okay, so this one I'm bending the rules a little bit, because I didn't technically play this game, but my friend Ville got this game, the Back to the Future game, as it was coming out. I don't remember anymore when. I sat next to Ville while he played through every single episode of the game. And I backseated a little bit. Well, I helped. I gave suggestions as we were going through the game and playing it. And yeah, this is a fun game. This is legitimately a really good follow-up, because it's supposed to be a direct follow-up to the Back to the Future movies. And they got Christopher Lloyd reprising his role as Doc Brown, and they got Michael J. Fox came back for a cameo in the final episode. But the guy who plays Marty in this is somebody who sounds a lot like him. But I thought that the story was really good, and and I think this was still this is right at the cusp when Telltale games were still actually good. It was right after this that they went down the shitter with all the other movie and television licenses, a million Walking Dead games that they shat out in the next couple of years, when they realized just like how lucrative these licensed games were. And don't get me wrong, this was not their first licensed adventure game. They have been done. Telltale started doing licensed adventure games But this was when they still had like majority like former LucasArts employees. So this was in the days of the good Telltale. But Back to the Future, compared to all their previous games, I will admit, was a lot easier. It was very straightforward. I think there was like one puzzle where we had to like consult a hint tool in like the first episode or something, and then for the rest of the game, nothing. Like it was like a super. It's a really easy game, I gotta say. Like as the story was good, the characterizations were good. You know, production wise, it's a really solid game. So I am tempted to put it in the solid, but I think it's a you know, because I put Loom here because I would say this is about the same difficulty wise as Loom or Alien Incident. So I believe like it really could really go here. I think oh man, this is hard. No, this is really hard because this is I was afraid that when we were going to come up with one of our first like borderline cases, like I'll say this: if you don't know Back to the Future, and it is possible there are people who don't know Back to the Future, like if you have no context for this game, then playing it doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to put it in the flawed but good category strictly on those bases. Because you know, there's 3 movies you have to watch before you play the game in order to understand what's going on in it. Okay, Broken Age. Man, this is a game that, now the previous time when I did my top 10 adventure games list, I was really waiting for, and I mentioned it in the intro, like it was just around the time when Broken Age Act 1 or Part 1 had come out, but Part 2 had not come out. I really wanted to put this on in the top 10, and it honestly pains me that I really wish I would have waited a couple of months for the full game to come out, because then it would have definitely made the top 5. Like Broken Age, I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna like sugarcoat it at all. This game is going to up here into the classics. Like this is a fantastic game. And the funny part is, I don't think I had played Day of the Tentacle yet at this point. I played Day of the Tentacle for the first time, I told in part 1, when the remaster was issued. And I think I do think it came out around the same time, but I don't remember which one came first. But it's like, you know, playing Broken Age, just recently, I started playing it again, because I had not played it since the part 2 had come out and I finished it. Now that I was thinking about revisiting the top 10, I realized like, okay, I gotta go back and play it again. And I was immediately just blown away by like how great the game is. I love everything about it. I love the art style. I love the puzzles. I love the characters. It's a great world. And I love the switching between 2 playable characters. It's very evocative of Day of the Tentacle. Now, what's interesting is that technically, for the first half, technically, the characters don't help each other out because the 2 characters aren't even aware of each other. But later on, in the second part, they definitely recycled that idea from Day of the Tentacle, where stuff in the other character's story can be used as clues for figuring out puzzles in the other character's story. And I love that. That is a great game mechanic. Now, if I was to compare Broken Age and Day of the Tentacle, I think Day of the Tentacle does that switching between characters thing a little better, but there's also more character, so they clearly built the game more heavily around that mechanic. Whereas with Broken Age, especially the first half, there is actually more of an incentive to just focus on one of the characters' storylines. And I will say, the first half of Broken Age, like that was the only thing that I was wary of. Like, I love the characters in the world, but the first half was actually really easy. Like the puzzles were, I was almost a little shocked how easy the puzzles in the first half of the game were. But then during part two, and I think this was in response to like feedback about how easy the first part was. I think they cranked up the difficulty, which I don't mind. I actually thought, the Serpent's Curse, and there it is. You know, unlike with the fifth Broken Sword, where I think they went a bit overboard, because it was the same thing when Broken Sword, when Broken Sword 5, the first half came out. You know, the game was, you know, pretty easy. But I would say roughly about as easy as all the other Broken Swords. Like, I don't say, well, minus, you know, this piece of garbage. But, you know, but it was like a equivalent level. But I think fans were just like, you know, I guess fans just really didn't like the fact that it was so easy, so they cranked up the difficulty and they went a little overboard with it. In Broken Age, yes, I think the final puzzles were actually kind of the toughest of all when you're having to rewire the little helper robot. But that's the other thing. I love those helper robots. The world in Broken Age is fantastic. It is. This is still, you know, looking back on it. This is easily one of the best adventure games of the past. What would I say? The past 20 years, honestly. So, oh yeah, and it's another Tim Schafer game. Like, don't act surprised. You know, there's Grim Fandango up there, and I almost put these in the classics category as well. Okay, this one is a bit of a wild card. So this is Captain Morgaine and the Golden Turtle, and I picked the Wii cover art here intentionally because yes, I have this for the Wii. Now, this is just a random adventure game at this used game store. I saw this, and I thought to myself, wait, this is a point-and-click adventure game, and it has a hot girl as the main character, and it's about pirates? Color me curious. And then I got it, and honestly, I had to say, like, my expectations for this was actually, like, kind of low. And then when I played it, you know what? I was surprised. This one actually is. So this is a more recent adventure game. And don't get me wrong, this is not like a hidden gem or anything. But compared to how I didn't know anything about this game and what my expectations were, the game itself, the story and the puzzles are excellent. And I think this game also has this nice feature. Some people might find this a little bit patronizing, but I think one nice feature that it does is that there's a button that you can click on the screen that automatically shows all the hotspots, stuff that you can click on. It highlights them so that you don't miss anything. And this is made by a company. I don't know if Reef is the publisher or if they're the ones that made this. So when I say I didn't know anything about this is one of those games that is actually part of a series, and I wasn't aware of it. The series is not called Captain Morgaine; it's something else. And Captain Morgaine was just a supporting character in this other adventure game. I think this was made by a German company, and then they made this spin-off game about Captain Morgaine, and it's a really, really good game. Like, it tells all about her backstory, and yes, there's a, you know, golden turtle that she goes after. There's some really funny characters and some really lovely highlights in there. And yeah, you know, actually, I don't even have too many things to complain about. The puzzles are actually surprisingly challenging. I think there's one thing that I didn't like were the dialogue activated puzzles. There's a lot of points in this game where there's a lot of these sequences where you are convincing other characters of your intentions. They do this like, you have to get a 3 out of 3 on those in order to make it. And also there are these really stupid mini-game sections. They're luckily, I think there's only like 1 or 2 in the whole game, but it's really jarring when you suddenly get tossed into that. But this is a really solid game. Like for such a complete no-name company, and basically just a spin-off of another adventure game series that I had never ever even heard of. But it's actually really good. I think one of the problems is that I think the game takes itself a little too seriously. There is comedy, but you know, I do like it when the characters are a little bit more goofy. Like there are some goofy highlights in here. So this is another toughie. Unlike Back to the Future, I do think this is a game you can enjoy because I enjoyed it. You can enjoy this without actually having played the other games because I'm not sure if this is supposed to be set before those games. There certainly didn't seem to be any like story connections that I was missing or anything. So I think this is actually, you know what? I think this actually deserves to go in the solid category. I will say, I think towards the end. Ooh, okay, sorry. I think towards the end, I don't. I do recall that the ending was kind of whatever. So I'm not sure. Like I said, like all these games are potential contenders for the top 10 spot, and I think Captain Morgaine is just a solid adventure game overall. I will say probably not, like a top runner for being in the top 10, but I think surprisingly solid for what it is. All right, Clock Tower. So this is another game that, might count as a borderline case, but, I count this as a point and click adventure game. People also call it like one of the first survival horrors. And I guess sort of, yeah, but if you play smartly, you don't actually run into Bobby or the Scissor Man, too often. It says Windows 95 here, but the one that I have played is obviously the Super Nintendo version. So that's the one that I'm ranking this based on. And let me say, if you're going to play this on an emulator, the SNES version, do not, make sure that you actually have a controller. I remember when I tried to play this years ago, first on an emulator, I actually really didn't like it a lot. But then when I got to play it with an actual Super Nintendo controller, the game is actually like really, really good. So this game gets some flack for some of the cryptic things, and yeah, this one has some randomization, like certain rooms, at different playthroughs, the locations of certain rooms and certain items are randomized. But it's a really short game. It's a very, very short game, and it does not take long to figure out what you're supposed to do. And in fact, after the first couple of playthroughs, it actually becomes then really easy to figure out, because the thing about Clock Tower is the challenge is not beating the game. I think you will beat the game like almost without trying pretty easily on the first time. And then it becomes all about just getting the different endings, which I like. I like the fact that there are these different endings. That's really one of my favorite things about it. And I love the atmosphere. I genuinely I have a soft spot for these 90s horror adventure games. They are really my jam. So, okay, the thing is, you don't have like direct control of your character. I think the biggest flaw really is like Jennifer's normal walking speed is so slow. I mean, you're gonna be running for most of the game anyway, so I don't think it's that bad. But like during the stairs, it's really like stupid. This is a toughie, because I love this game, but I understand why some people may not like it because it's so old and clunky. For my money, I would have no reservations about actually putting it all the way up here. I think it's absolutely an all-time classic and no questions asked. And funny enough, I actually one of the big inspirations for this is the Italian horror movie Phenomena, which features Jennifer Connelly, whom the main character is obviously based on. I actually saw that for the first time this year, and I actually really liked it. So this is a toughie. You know what? I think I feel like if I put it up here, that seems a bit unfair, because flaw wise, I think it still has like some obvious flaws. This is annoying. Like I really want to put it up here. So you know what? This is really tearing me apart a little bit. I am going to put it here in the solid territory. I know it has flaws, and I know people are going to, disagree with my assessment of the first Clock Tower, but I just genuinely love this game so much. I feel it's really tearing me apart. It's not like there's plenty of room up here, don't get me wrong, but I do genuinely think it's better than any of these games, and depending on the mood I'm in, I would even like prefer it over a lot of these games as well. Okay, maybe saying that it's better than Dave the Tentacle or Full Throttle's that's a bit of a stretch. But like I said, it's a short. Like I said, I don't mind short adventure games. All right, D. Just very recently got to play this, and I was actually inspired by Aqualunk's video on it, and immediately, like I thought, like I said, I have a soft spot for these cheesy, for these '90s horror adventure games. But then I actually played it, and yeah. Actually, I actually streamed a full playthrough of this, and okay, I have to be honest, not a fan. The main problem with this game is that it's so slow. It's like, walking around on this is agony, and the puzzles, some of the puzzles are fun. Some of them are pretty clever, but there is also a quick time event, which counts as like one of the puzzles, and that I was like, no, just no. Now, I don't want to say this is all out bad. Like the renders, like the outdated 3D renders, I think are actually really charming. I like that. I think whenever there is music, it's good. Visually, I think the biggest problem is the fact the entire game is interlaced. Not just the cutscenes, the entire game is interlaced, and that really hurts it when you play it. Like I played the PC version of this, and I was just like, awestruck. Like, oh my god, this game looks bad. So I like the spooky atmosphere, and unlike with Clock Tower, it's a kind of game where you can't actually die. The story's a bit cheesy. I kind of like it. So that's why I'm putting it in the tedious category. I don't think it's all out bad, but it's not very good. Like I was not impressed. Ah shit, now I remember. Okay, I'll cover this next one, and then I realized there were a bunch of games here actually. Yeah, there are actually a bunch of games here that were supposed to go into the question mark. It completely slipped my mind that I was supposed to do all the question mark titles in the midst of this. So we'll take a little break after I talk about this, because this is a big game. I really need to talk about this because I was actually just recently, like literally yesterday, I was playing this. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, based on the short story by Harlan Ellison. And true story, Harlan Ellison is actually one of the voice actors in the game. He's Am, and all the different characters that Am voices, I think, also in the game. So it's a dystopic game set in the super distant future where the computer Am has killed all of humanity except for 5 people. It deviates from the short story quite a bit, and I have read the original short story actually. I have not finished the game, but the reason I actually started replaying it was because I wanted to remind myself, was the game actually like super cryptic? Or was it just clunky? Because I do remember when I finally got to play it, because I have watched a full playthrough of this, but then when I got it and I played it, I was honestly a little bit off-put by like how clunky it was. But you know what? I played through 3 of the 5 characters scenarios in preparation for this, and I came to the conclusion, like, yeah, it's a bit cryptic, but the crypticness comes really also that it's just kind of badly designed. And the story, if you read the original story, it's actually really upsetting and kind of fucked up. I mean, it's Harlan Ellison. Are you surprised? Here's the deal. It's also kind of unintentionally goofy. I think it has aged a bit badly. Like, I forgot like how hand-drawn the characters look in the game. But I do enjoy it. And actually, if you have enough patience, I kind of realize about this. Like, if you're patient enough, you can actually solve, at least in those 3 scenarios that I played. Like, I realized, like, you could actually, like, legit figure it out. I used a walkthrough because I actually wanted to see if I could get to the ending, and then I realized, like, oh, okay, so I kind of overlooked a few things because I wasn't focused on it. But, like, there was, like, one thing was, like, in the Gorister scenario where you have to pick up the fork, and And the first time I passed my mouse over the fork, I saw like there's this blip on the ground. Like, is that something that I can click? And then it didn't react. And then I read that, oh, there's a fork in the kitchen. Like, where was there a fork in the kitchen? And I go back and I pass my mouse over it again. So the thing that I'm saying is that this game is clunky, and it's kind of unintentionally funny in my opinion. But it actually is a good adventure game, and it's another one of these horror style ones. Okay, now we're gonna speed through a few of the games that are gonna go into the question mark box because I forgot them. All right, here's Inherit the Earth. People can probably make an educated guess about why I got this game. And I did play a fair bit into it. The thing is, this game has like a big open world. And I kind of got a little stuck because I honestly just kind of lost track of what I was supposed to do or where I was supposed to go. I think this is a game that I will come back to eventually, but I really didn't play far enough into it. And again, it's from the mid-90s and it's kind of clunky. But I thought the characters, at least the little bit that I remember from it, I remember liking the characters. So this is a game that I might actually come back to. Here's another one that I started and didn't get very far into. This is, actually it doesn't say here, but this is actually the second Carandia game. It's a part of a game series. Now, I don't remember anymore why I got this. I think I saw the screenshots and that it was like a female main character or something. Like, I thought okay, and I found it fun, and it looked fun. And I thought like, okay, hey, let's give this a shot. I don't remember. Maybe it was on sale or something. I don't know why I got this one and not Carandia 1. From what I remember from the beginning, though, it didn't seem like you needed to know what happened in Carandia 1 to play this one. But I just couldn't really get into it. I just wasn't super into the world, and yeah, I don't think I could manage. I didn't manage. I remember there were some really funny animations and things you could do in the. But yeah. Maybe I've got to put a pin on that, and maybe I actually do have to play the first Carandia game before I jump back into this one. Yeah, this one. Rex Nebula, the Cosmic Gender Bender. Another fucking Microprose one. I got a little bit into this, but this is the same problem. I could not get past like the first 15-minute mark because I could not figure out what I was supposed to be doing. Maybe I'll come back to this, I kind of like sci-fi. Here's the funny thing, like, to me, like, I kind of do like sci-fi point-and-click games more than fantasy ones, which is surprising, which might surprise some people because, like I said previously, like, I haven't never even played any of the Space Quest games. But yeah, I do not have strong enough an opinion to actually, say anything about Rex Nebula. This is a game I also played a fair bit into, but then I got stuck on one puzzle. This is still live, and by Microids, the people who did the Syberia games. And I see a lot of the same problems with this as Syberia, but actually, I like the characters a lot better in this. And it's a crime mystery point-and-click adventure game, so that already makes it much better in my opinion. But again, like I said, I got stuck, and then I couldn't be bothered to keep playing past that point, so I don't have an informed opinion on it. Like I said, from what I saw at the beginning, I actually liked it a lot, but I just couldn't get very far into it. And I think this is the last. Yeah, I think this is the last of the ones that I don't have a rating for. This is Teen Agent. This is one of those freebies that you get from GOG or Steam or whatever, and yeah, I wasn't aware. I actually thought that this was one of those indie developed point and click games. But actually, this is actually from some company that made it for Amiga a long time ago. Now I did play a fair bit into this. I think I finished the boot camp section, but not a big fan. Like it took me. I had to consult a walkthrough way too many times for what really seems like to be like the tutorial section of the game. Like it did not feel. It didn't, like, let me say this, like, if I come back to Teenage and if I beat it, I don't expect it to get much further beyond this territory. Like, even at best, it would go into the hold my hand category. Okay, but now, alright, we plowed through those. Here's Jack Keane. This is a game I legit really was really wanted to like. And this has some things about it. Like, for one thing, this has an English dub by Audio Gods, and, you know, that's Lonnie Manella's voice acting company. So Duke Nukem is in the voice cast, and pretty much all the Sonic Adventure voice actors are in the voice cast. And this is another one by a German company, different one than the Captain Morgaine one. And as you can tell, it's trying to have a little bit of a Monkey Island thing. But this game had a lot of problems. First of all, it's just not very well made. It's kind of it's not super cryptic, but it's kind of cryptic, and sometimes it's difficult to even figure out what you're doing because the game it's just so badly programmed. I thought the cutscenes were fun. I like the cheesy voice acting, but the problem is the tone of the game. I think the game is honestly trying to be kind of serious, but it would play so much better if it had been full on goofy and silly. And I got stuck due to like really stupid things, like objects like getting placed just off screen so that I couldn't see them, and little things like this is not a good game. This is like legit. Like I was really let down by this. Like with Captain Morgaine, I had really low expectations, and the game actually exceeded them. This one I had kind of high expectations because I thought it looked fun. I thought it looked fun, and I thought I would have a good time with it. And then it just like did not deliver at all. And I had to consult a walkthrough quite a many times, and I don't think I really enjoyed the story that much. But you know, it's not flat out bad. It wasn't like horrible, but I think this honestly does deserve to go into the tedious territory. Like it's a decently long adventure game. Don't get me wrong. There's actually a lot of stuff to do in it. It suffers from a lack of direction. Lack of good, decent story writing. It's tedious. It's very tedious. It would take me a lot to come back to Jack Keane. I was not impressed by it. The Longest Journey. Okay, this is another game that was on the original top 10, and I have told the story. And I think I told the story in the top 10 that I actually had a bit of a turnaround on this game. The first time I played it, honestly, wasn't really like a big fan of it, and it made it onto the top 10 on the strength of its writing. Like the game has a really deeply written story, but technically, from a technical standpoint, it is really rough. I feel bad about like criticizing it for that because the Funcom, the company that made this, they were not a big company. This is a small indie developed adventure game, and the fact that it got a big wide like commercial release was actually kind of a small miracle, especially at the point when this game came out, because you know this was around the time when adventure games were just all going down the shitter, and so this one is one of those games that people kind of like held up as a holdover from the 90s as like one of the last great adventure games or something like that. And don't get me wrong, I think the story is actually really good. I have been critical in the past, and I think that it deserves this criticism. There are some really stupid puzzles in this game. So it is very unforgiving. Well, not unforgiving, like you can't fuck up or, you know, or ruin your game or anything like that. But, so this definitely would be in the flawed category. Now, honestly, it's been very long since I last played this game, so I'm not sure if I would put it in my top 10 anymore. Like, this is the game, this was there mostly, you know, as in recognition of its, like, great storytelling. But now I think I have to put it at least in the hold my hand territory, because it is a game where inevitably there's going to be a part where you're going to have to consult a walkthrough. I don't think it's possible to play it, like, unless you're really patient and unless you can really, like, think outside the box. Let me just put it here. But this could change. Like I said, I have not played that game since I made that last top 10, I think. So I do not have any, like, really fresh imprint in my mind about this game. And I really wish, I think I have to, after I've done this tier list, I think I have to just, like, buy the game from GOG or something and just give it another whirl. And no, I've never played the sequel. I don't actually particularly care to. Well, I need to check if it was a legit adventure game, because I seem to recall, like, they changed genres into something different, but maybe I'm wrong. Okay. I kind of have thrown this in as a joke, but you know, I've never said that I wasn't limiting like kids adventure games, like that kids adventure games were somehow like out of the question. Now I wondered about which of the we had three Moomin games growing up, and I was wondering if Moomin and the Magic Hat could qualify, but I came to the conclusion like that one is more of a collection of mini games, even though it has a story. It has a very distinct story for it, and you're on a quest to discover the all the pieces of the ruby. I was not aware of this game being called The Great Moomin Celebration. That's the title. I have always referred to this as Moomin 3D, and basically it's Myst but with Moomins. So this is a legit point and click adventure game because you actually solve puzzles. If you don't know the Moomin lore, Moomins hibernate, and you're some weird guy who's just snooping around the Moomin house, and for some reason the Moomins haven't woken up. So the first part of the game, which I count as the adventure game part, is you going around the Moomin house and finding the different ways to wake up all the Moomins. And then it goes into the sort of, not even mini game, just like celebration thingy to do it. You know what? I think this is adorable. An adorable game. It's not a good game. Don't get me wrong. Like, absolutely not. I'm not sure if I would call it tedious though. I can't put it in the hold my hand because none of the puzzles are super hard. It usually just involves you finding the correct thing on the screen to click. And the fact that it's the 3D rendering, like this was made in the 90s, so it's very, very early and crude. But that's the reason that I like about it. It's really funny looking. I think I'm gonna put it in the flawed but good category just for the lulz. Oh, speaking of flawed but good, here's Normality. So this one is by Gremlin Interactive. I have not reviewed this, but I do have a full playthrough of this, a Let's Play. I have to warn you though, it's from around the time before my Let's Plays actually got good. So the editing's a bit hit or miss on that. Now, I like this game. It's a very early example of a 3D point-and-click game, like made in the mid-90s. And because of that, it is technologically very crude. It is very, very... I don't blame people who maybe try to play the game for the first time and can't figure it out, or just are put off by the production qualities, because it's very rough around the edges. And Gremlin Interactive, didn't do adventure games regularly. They did all kinds of games. Gremlin was one of those companies. Gremlin is one of my favorite. I have a list video of cool gaming companies that aren't around anymore. Gremlin was the kind of company that did every type of game. They did racing games, they did platforming games, they did sports games. I think they have one like FPS game, Realms of Haunting or something like that. And this was the only adventure game that they did. It's the same thing with, by the way, with Housemarque. Housemarque wasn't like an adventure game company either. The Alien Incidents was the one adventure game that they did. So here's the thing: if you can muster the energy and get into it, I think Normality actually is like a it is a good game. I did get stuck quite a lot of times, so now I'm wondering if putting it in the flawed but good is a bit much, because I think it might actually be more at home in the hold my hand. The main issue, because I don't think most of the puzzles are super hard, but it's sometimes, because of the orientation of the game world, it's sometimes a little difficult to kind of figure out what you can interact with and how to interact with it. So it's not super self-explanatory. So I think because of that, it deserves to go in the hold my hand territory. I think this is a game where I don't blame people for consulting a walkthrough at all, because the game is not super. I wouldn't say it's too ahead of its time. I would say that it's just kind of difficult to get into. All right, here's Peasant's Quest, and as you can see from Trogdor in the background, this is by the Homestar Runner people. The brothers chaps actually made this. Also, some guy called Jonathan. I'm not sure who that is, but Mike and Matt, those are the. Now, I have to warn people. This is a Flash game, and I'm not sure if it's up, because the Homestar Runner website's a bit of a shit show right now. They've been trying to convert stuff to HTML5, But like a lot of the games, to my eternal disappointment, a lot of the browser games aren't working. I really hope that they've gotten this one up. So this is very obviously, just a riff on King's Quest, but it's very faithfully recreated in the style of the original King's Quest One, to the point where you can die very easily. And it's a browser game, so it's really difficult to get into if you're not into that type of game. But here's the thing: I finished the whole game. Granted, the reason it is going into the hold my hand territory specifically because I played it with the walkthrough open, and I consulted it as much as possible. And the hard part about this, I think you could save the game, but you could not leave the window that you were on in order to keep playing the game. But I did finish the whole game. It's not a very long game, but the thing that makes it worth playing is is obviously the comedy from the brothers chaps. Like this is like King's Quest, but funny is basically what I'm getting at. But I have to warn people, I discovered something unfortunate when I was trying to look for a screenshot of the game to use. Apparently there's another game called Peasant's Quest, and that one it's a porn game. So, unfortunately, and it seems to be fairly popular. There's a lot of pictures of it. So, yeah, it seems like, unfortunately, Peasant's Quest, like a lot of Homestar Runner things, is just sadly kind of disappearing into the recesses of people's internet memory. Pink Panther, Passport to Peril, this is a kid's adventure game, but this is legitimately a good game. This is, you know what, I'm not even going to front. I am putting this, I mean, it's a take on the Pink Panther cartoon that was in the 90s. In this, the Panther is like a secret agent, and he's protecting the summer camp of the delegates of different countries. And then you travel around the country. And it is an educational game. They did fill in a lot of, edutainment stuff. But it's a legit point-and-click adventure game. It's actually really good. And I love the songs. The songs are so cheesy. And some people I know probably won't like it because of that. But I love this. This is great. Now, again, the same way I'm putting it, the Moomins, and here. This game would never actually be on my top 10, but it is such a good game. I just have to acknowledge it just for that. Like if more kids adventure games would be like that. I know some people are going to ask, well, what about the humongous entertainment games? We didn't have the humongous entertainment games in Finland, so I never got to play those. But yeah, I really wish there were more games like this for kids. And here we have another Telltale game, Sam & Max Save the World, episodic game. And I will say readily and without hesitation, better than the original Sam & Max. I have not played the other two. This is the only one that I've played, and I'm not like super. And listen, maybe Sam & Max just isn't for me. I'm not super into the idea of trying the other ones. Well, maybe the third chapter, because I've seen some pictures of it. It looks kind of interesting. But like I said, this is pre-Tales of Monkey Island. So this is from the good old days, back when Telltale was still good. I can't really come up with anything. It's been a while since I've played the game, so maybe if I had more fresh memories, I could remember some like actual flaws. But I remember the puzzles were actually legit kind of challenging on this one. So I had to put it in the solid territory, absolutely. No questions asked. Like this one, easily way better game than Hit the Road. So, Telltale really got its stuff together, or still had its stuff together at this point. Okay, and then finally, the last of the of this miscellaneous territory is Toonstruck, and this is a very recent game. I only played this for the first time last year. This is another kind of a flawed game. Now, I'm a bit on the fence here whether to put it in the flawed but good or hold my hand, because I do recall that I had to consult a walkthrough quite a few times on this one. It's another adventure game with Christopher Lloyd, but this time he's the main character. So he's digitized into the game. You know, the thing with Toonstruck is that I did not like the story a lot. The story was kind of honestly whatever. I like some of the characters. I like some of the jokes. And it's trying to be like a pastiche of cartoons. It kind of it's trying to have a little bit of like a Roger Rabbit thing going. But I don't think it was like all out successful. And yeah, okay, now I remember there's the stupid clown puzzles and you know what? I will say if I'm gonna put it in the hold my hand because this is a game again where I think it would be okay to use the walkthrough just because the game is a bit obtuse. It's a bit difficult to get into if you don't have the walkthrough. So I like it. Actually, yes, I played through the entire game on a stream a while, last year as well. So yeah, I like it, but I definitely would not put Toonstruck in my top 10. I don't think it's really in contention. No! Oh, crap. You know what? I did forget one game. Okay, really, I have to apologize for this one because this is unacceptable. Because this should have been the solo. This should have been in the solos. But yeah, so I was beginning to wonder where it was. It just hit me that we are definitely missing one major Telltale game because this was on my original. This is on my top 10. Now, some people might be confused, like, wait a minute, isn't this on the bottom 10? And it sort of is. One episode, so this is a episodic adventure game. The third episode, which is Baddest of the Bands, yeah. So, because I always get the title wrong. That one was on the bottom 10, but, small secret here, I always put Battles of the Bands in the bottom 10 just because it fills up one slot. Because, yeah, it was the most disappointing episode of Strong Bad School Game for Attractive People. But Strong Bad School Game for Attractive People overall, it's a fantastically solid adventure game. I would say, without hesitation, this is the best Telltale game. Period. That's what I was about to say. There wasn't a continuation. This is the best Telltale game, without question. And some of you might be wondering, like, really another fucking licensed game? But Homestar Runner it was a web cartoon. It's a hilarious web cartoon. The thing that I love about this is the fact that it was a Flash cartoon that they managed to perfectly move into 3D. They did it so faithfully in considering the source material. I have to put it up there. Now, don't get me wrong, episodes 3 and 4, those were the weak part. And 3, yeah, it was very disappointing because I didn't think any of the musical parodies were really good. And number 4 was very linear. Like, that's what I like about episodes 1, 2, and 5, is that you can actually, you have multiple puzzles you can solve at the same time. But number 4, I can also kind of forgive the structural flaws because it was supposed to be a movie. So it made sense. It made sense in the context of the format. And some games are just gonna sometimes have like linear parts. Like it's just inevitable. And the fact that I put one episode into my bottom 10 and originally the bottom 5 or whatever, when I said that Larry Magna Cum Laude was the least flawed of the games that went on the original bottom 10, well, yeah, sort of. I think, technically speaking, the Baddest of the Bands doesn't actually have that many flat-out flaws either, because it still had good jokes, it still had some good puzzles. It's just the overall impression my expectations for it were so high, and the game just didn't deliver. I mean, that episode didn't deliver. All right, and here we are. Finally, the final category, which is the other adventure game series. And just like with the previous one, there's probably one game at least that's going to go into the question mark box, but I'm going to now at least, I'm going to go in the alphabetical order again here. And we'll start with the 7th guest. Okay. I think this one, people probably already probably know already where this is going. I have a review of The Seventh Guest. So, Seventh Guest is pretty clunky, but I actually do like Seventh Guest a lot. But because it is so clunky, like this game absolutely, it's another spooky point-and-click adventure game. Like I said, I have a review video of this and the sequel, 11th Hour, jointly. And I really like this. This is a really spooky, fun adventure game, with some really spooky, fun FMV stuff. But it is very rough around the edges. Like, it has not aged very gracefully. But that's still, it's still a lot of fun. That's the main thing, and Robert Hirschberg as, Stoff is kind of like the running thread across this entire series. He's kind of like the main thing about all these games that makes them worth playing for the most part. Except for 11th Hour. This game is shit. It's horrible. Remember, I talked about D, how that entire game was interlaced. In this game, it's just the cutscenes, luckily, but the cutscenes are also so boring. Like, with D at least, some of the cutscenes are at least interesting. Like, with the 11th Hour, not so much. Like, this is an offensively bad sequel. Like, it has none of the charm of the first one. It just has a bunch of. It's just more violent. It has more like sex jokes and references in it. And the main character is like bad. Like, the main character is not even good, and the puzzles aren't really very good. There's like one or two puzzles that I like in this game, and it's this was on the bottom 10. This was absolutely on the bottom 10, so I think there's no questions about it. Like, this is where it deserves to go. It is like just god-awful. Alright, then the 13th Doll. Now, like it says here, this is a fan game, so this was not made by the original Trilobite folks, but it was made with their permission. It had Robert Hirschberg in it, and it tried to tie things back to the original Seventh Guest. I actually have full playthroughs of the 7th Guest, the 11th Hour, and the 13th Doll on my second channel. And this game had a lot of cool ideas. It has multiple playable characters. So basically, or just 2 playable characters, it has 2 alternate storylines. And Tad's story was actually really good. And it even has multiple endings. 11th Hour does 2, but it's kind of difficult to get all of them. But luckily, there's a cheat code. Just go watch the final episode of the final 11 of my 11th hour Let's Play, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And this game tried, like, I have to give them props. They really tried hard to stay faithful to the series. But then they did a bunch of stuff that I wasn't a fan of. I didn't like the fact that you move so slowly in the mansion. That was the thing that I thought was kind of cool, that that they had recreated the mansion from the game in the Unity engine, and that you could just go around walking freely in it. But then, you walk so slowly, it's not really fun. I don't like the maze puzzle. And then Dr. Richmond's story, I think the puzzles were honestly way worse. I remember on my playthrough of Dr. Richmond, I got really frustrated with the game. Now, this game does have a hint tool. It actually has 2 hint tools, basically. Oh, and the other thing, there's no audio settings, which is bizarre. Like, why? There's a big issue. The audio balancing is completely off on this. And don't get me wrong, it's also in the 11th Hour. It's much closer to the 7th Guest than the 11th Hour quality-wise. But I was a little mixed on it. I think I have to put it in the Hold My Hand, because there's luckily an option to skip some of the puzzles. And actually, yes, in 11th Hour there is as well. But yeah, this one's not very good. And here's the first of the Hugos. And this is funny, because I do have the entire Hugo trilogy, but I don't think, or I honestly cannot remember that I have ever played Hugo 2. Or if I have, is that the Whodunit? I don't know. But Hugo, these are text parser adventure games made by some no-name company back in the day. But I actually played Hugo 3 first, which is kind of interesting. And so I have a little bit of more nostalgia for Hugo 3. Hugo 1, now this one, I tried, honestly. So this is, in this, you're trying to save your girlfriend, and she's stuck in a mansion full of monsters. It is bad. It's a text parser adventure game, and it's very cryptic. It's hard to figure out. I do not enjoy it. Now, I don't know like how far, but I tried to play this earnestly a few times, and I always end up getting stuck on some stupid thing. So I really kind of want to put it either in the bad or tedious, but I think I'm going to have to consent with this one that I don't feel like I've played it far enough, because I don't know how I don't know the end game really for this one. So I'm going to put it, just to be on the safe side, I'm going to put it in the question mark, tier, but just as a forewarning, no, I don't enjoy that. Okay, then Hugo 3, The Jungle of Doom. I like the graphics. The graphic presentation of this game is really, really funny, but it's also a text parser adventure game, and it's not good. It's I think it's a bit more. I think there's a bit more meat around its bones than Hugo. And something that I will say, in comparison to the Larrys that I haven't played, the parser Larrys, I felt that this game actually moves a lot quicker. Like, you get into the story a lot faster, but it's still not great. So I'm not sure if putting it in the tedious rank is necessarily fair. I was thinking of just slapping these on here into the bottoms, because I've mentioned that I just don't like these games very much. But, I don't have the heart to do that. I'll just put them in the question mark tiers now. I don't know if I really ever want to go back to Hugo. I got these games from GOG because I had some nostalgia for Hugo 3, and I wanted to see, like, okay, is the game any good? And to me, it's starting to feel more and more like, no, it's not any good. It's actually really bad, but, Okay, but this one, Runaway, a road adventure. Yep, this is another top 10 entrant. And this one, though, unfortunately, it does have to go into the flawed but good territory, because there are flaws. There's obvious technical flaws, but the story, the puzzles, this game is fantastic. And I think in stark contrast to Runaways 2 and 3, which we're going to talk about in a minute, the thing about this game that I love is that the characters, even though the dialogue is sometimes kind of... even though the dialogue in this game is sometimes, a bit overly wordy, the great thing is, like, you always know what you're supposed to be doing. This game does not... well, okay, the game does do a few things to intentionally trip up the player. One thing is that inventory items do blend into the background. But in this game, I think, for the most part, it was maybe not completely intentional. Okay, a couple of examples I can think of were probably intentional. But basically, this is a game where if you're persistent and you make sure to check everything, you will make progress. I honestly don't think when I played this game through for the first time that I ever actually had to consult a walkthrough. That I actually managed to play through it all the way to the end. And I like the story and I love the characters. This game did so many things right, which the sequel sadly did not do right. That yeah, I would still absolutely put this in the top 10 without question. I think it is better than Seventh Guest, better than this one. I think it's better than I Have No Mouth and I'm a Scream. I think it's better than Back to the Future. I'm a bit hesitant to say whether or not it's better than Alien Incident. Maybe slightly better, because it's not quite as derivative, even though it is pretty derivative, because, Pendulo, they love movies and they do things like that. I think it's better than Larry 6. I might even go so far as to say it's better than Sins of the Fathers. Whether it's better than Beast Within, that's where I start to have a little bit of trouble. And I think Escape from Monkey Island is still a more solid game. But I think this is still good company it's in right now. Oh boy. Then Runaway 2. Like, Runaway 2 is like how to make a game that's objectively worse but put it in a nicer package. This game is bad. It's super cryptic. A lot of the puzzles don't make any sense. It forces you to go back and forth between locations constantly to activate things. and it's not even easy to get around. Like weirdly, like you there's a lot of locations. Like you get tired of walking around in this game very, very quickly. So it does have better production quality. I think the dub is better, but actually this game is much more cryptic. So, but I would not in a million years put it in the Hold My Hand. It's not a good game. And you don't get to, and Gina's out of commission for almost the entire game. Like at least in the first Runaway, you got to talk to her a little bit. But in this game, she's literally like just completely out of it. So yeah, no questions. This is a bad game. It goes in the bad category. It was there already in my original bottom 10. Oh crap! No! All right, but let's jump back into the Runaway. Sorry, I kind of broke it off there. Okay, Runaway twist. Oh yeah, and also I have a Let's Play of the first Runaway, not the second one though. And I don't hold your breath for that one. It's also because Runaway 2 just runs really badly on modern computers. I don't know what's wrong with it. Twist of Fate. I have a review video of this one. And like I said that it goes right in the middle of these. So somewhere between Hold My Hand and Tedious. You know what? I think I could put it in the Hold My Hand territory, but this one was a disappointing sequel. Like, I wasn't super into Runaway 2, but I still kind of wanted to know how the plot that they were building up to would have been resolved. And then it turns out, I found out that Pendulo themselves didn't like the whole alien story arc thing. So they kind of flopped over the details and they just did a completely different story for Runaway 3. Which, you know, that is really the thing that pisses me off partially about Runaway 3. I like the idea that they want to go back to something more down to earth, like the first game, but then they got rid of like all the memorable characters. Like, as much as I hate Runaway 2, like I like the fact that Sushi, Rutger, and Saturn were in it. So they had like the original crew from the first game, and then none of those guys are in Runaway 3. And Runaway 3 is intentionally cryptic. This one, here they were, I feel that they were intentionally just being shitheads and making the game, you know, super difficult. So, yeah, not a fan of that. So that's why I Hold My Hand, because but the thing is, the game does have a hint tool, though. I can't hate on it too much. Alright, now we come to the Simon the Sorcerer games. So these were, and I'm only going to be talking about the first 3 Simon games, because I know with AdventureSoft, what happened was that after the third game, they went out of business and they sold the Simon the Sorcerer property off to somebody else. And that somebody else was a German company, don't act surprised. And they made a bunch of Simon games. I haven't played any of them. I'm not sure I necessarily even want to. Now, my first entry into the series was actually the second game. And I've had a bit of a turnaround on that as well. So, but Simon the Sorcerer 1, wait a minute, was it? I think it was 2021 I streamed a Let's Play. No, I think it was earlier last year. I streamed I streamed this entire game. And what I came to conclude about that one is that I don't like Simon 1 nearly as much as Simon 2. Don't get me wrong, I think graphically and musically it's kind of cool, but the story is really, I mean, the progress of the story is just, it's whatever. And the puzzles are super cryptic. And the thing that they love to do in this game, they did a little bit in Simon 2, I'll be fair, but they didn't do it nearly as much, as that they really loved hiding tiny details into the background that if you forgot to click, you would never progress through the game. But it's like, it's a really, I'm always a little puzzled by how this game became as big enough that they actually made a sequel to it. Because it's not very good. I'm not sure if it's like all out bad though, because, you know, there are parts of it that I think are funny. It's weird, Simon is not nearly as mean in this game as he is in the sequel. In the sequel they made like Simon like extra mean, which actually kind of makes the second game that much more funnier. Here he's kind of vanilla. I don't think it deserves to go all the way to the bad territory, but I did start to get very fed up with the game world, which is how repetitive everything is, and especially like just traveling around the game world with the magic, even with the magic map, you know, it's really time consuming. I don't really like the characters. I did like some of the voice actors, and some of the voice actors did come back for the sequel, but Simon's didn't, because he was like a big actor. You know what? I'll put it in the hold my hand. I mean, I did not enjoy it, but I don't think it. I don't think I would call it tedious necessarily. I think that would be a bit unfair on the game overall. So speaking of Simon 2, so I had a big turnaround on this because honestly, the first time I played through it, I don't think I liked it because Simon was so mean. On subsequent playthroughs, I appreciate the comedy a lot more, and I think the parodies of all the fairy tales and things, because that's the thing, that was Simon 1's thing as well. It was like making fun of fantasy and fairy tales. And they did that with Simon 2 as well, but I think the parodies and jokes and everything, they were much better. Like this is a bigger and better game in every sense of the word. And a big part of it is also that Simon is so much more mean. And we have a full Let's Play of this with RetroKaiser, actually. So, but this game is a bit cryptic. There are puzzles in it that don't make a lot of sense, and you're going to have to consult a walkthrough every once in a while, which is, I don't want to put it in the hold my hand, because actually quite a few of the puzzles you can solve without the walkthrough, but there are a couple which I can definitely see people having problems with. So, it goes into flawed but good territory again. So yeah, there we go with that. And then finally, Simon 3D. Now, I have played a fair bit of Simon 3D, but I have not finished it, and I haven't gotten very far into it. And Simon 3D had a very problematic production. It started off as a 2D point-and-click adventure game, and then because the game publishers just refused to publish a 2D point-and-click game, they had to transfer it to 3D. They did a really rough job of it. The final game, when it finally came out, it was torn to shreds. It basically it was the death blow for Adventuresoft, essentially. I think the jokes, comedy, and characters are still really funny. The graphics look terrible, but like I said, it was a rush job. They couldn't do much with it. This is another one where I'm a little on the fence if I want to put this in the question mark territory, because I have not beaten it. I would really want to beat the whole game in order to get a full opinion on it. The thing is, getting around the overworld is so tiresome. Like, even with Simon running, it takes way too long. There's a lot of stupid crap. Like, if it was just 3D puzzle solving, it would be fine. But this one, and again, I'm sure this wasn't Adventuresoft's fault. I'm sure that they were forced to do this. But there's like a bunch of like useless crap that you have to do, like collecting butterflies and things. So this game is tedious. I wouldn't call it necessarily awful, but like I said, I haven't actually finished it, so I have to one of these days I am definitely coming back to finish this game, and hopefully by when I do that, my opinion, I'll have a much more definitive opinion on it. But I do want to put it right here at this point. Like it's a tedious game, but it's not a horrible game. Speaking of tedious, Syberia, yeah. The main problem with this is that it actually has a kind of a good story, but it's just told so ineptly. And the main thing is, like, there's not even a lot of puzzle solving. Like, this is not a game where you get stuck because you don't know what you're supposed to do. But you spend so much time just running around. Like, it is very, very tedious. There's not a lot of redeeming values to this game. It's real bad. Now again, funny enough, same thing as with Hugo, I have not actually played Syberia 2. But I did get Syberia 3 just by complete coincidence as a present. And I mentioned in with the bottom 10 last time that I have played this, and that I finished Syberia 3. But that it is moderately better. It's not a point-and-click game. This one, actually, you have direct control of Kate. And some of the locations, I think, and some of the characters are actually kind of cool. But the story is just like, it's like, what? I don't really get what is. I mean, I guess this is that I should really play Syberia 2 to really understand what's going on. But like, it's at this point, like in the game, it's like Kate has long since forgotten his original assignment, and she's just like wandering around, I guess, Russia, just, aimlessly. Syberia 3 is still, like, it's very clunky. It's technologically very clunky. Syberia 1 is slow and boring, but it is actually a more finished game. Syberia 3 is very, very clunky and hard to get into. Ooh, but it is better. I like the characters a lot better. And whenever you solve something and you get progress, it felt actually like rewarding in stark contrast to Syberia 1, where it didn't feel like you got anything for your troubles. I wouldn't describe it as a good game, but if you can muster through it, I think it's more enjoyable. So just for that fact, I have to put it in the hold my hand territory. I do remember there were some things where I had to consult a walkthrough, but not because I couldn't figure out the puzzles, but because I couldn't figure out the layout. The layout of the game world is really frustrating, and there's a lot of, like, big empty areas, in fact, where you don't do anything. So it's the kind of game where you can get lost a little bit. That is almost pushing it into the tedious territory, but I want there to be a degree of separation here. So no, I'm not doing that. Okay, and with that, we have ranked every single, or almost every single, adventure game I have ever played. And this does not surprise me at all. It's very top-heavy. Like I said, there actually ended up being a lot more, games in the lower ranks than I suspected, or expected. So, yeah, there's these games, and some of these were in the bottom 10. Actually, let me quickly make the rundown. This was there. That was there. Yeah, these 6 were on the original bottom 10, and then these 2 were also in Syberia. Yeah, so the only one that's missing that's not here is the third episode of Strong Bad School Game for Attractive People, which I said was kind of like there just to fill up the slot. Like, if I was willing to loosen up the criteria for inclusion of multiple games in a series, then maybe Fate of Atlantis could go there. But Fate of Atlantis is still better than most of these games. So maybe D might actually be a contender to go on the bottom 10 for me. But also Jack Keane. Like, D is, crude and really bad. But it's also it's much older. Jack Keane's a newer game, so there's less of an excuse for it to be that bad. I'm a little surprised. I showed a lot of restraint in the end. I didn't put nearly as many into the classics territory. Only 5 of these have been on the top 10 before. But, there was a good argument for Secret of Monkey Island, Larry Reloaded, and Broken Age to be also there. And really, any of these would be good contenders. Maybe the further we go to the right, the less so. But there are some solid entries here. And Beyond the Steel Sky, for like a recent adventure game, is like shockingly good. So that one, that's a top contender. But also in the flawed but good territory, I want to stress this here, that I don't think that an adventure game needs to be like an absolutely polished gem to get on my top 10. Absolutely not. If the game has other qualities that make it memorable and fun, then it is absolutely in contention. Like, even something like Seventh Guest, I have seriously considered putting in the top 10, but in the end I always decided against it because it was so clunky and it had so many like technical problems. But yeah, that was the ranking of my favorite adventure games. I hope thank you if you actually watched all the way to the end. Thank you for watching. I'm Hunter the Hunter Mäkinen, and see you on the next one. Bye bye.